So you're saying that we could live multiple lives at the same
Yes.
time?
Yes, I've done it on Earth as well as on other planets. Whether we want to incarnate onto Earth, onto another planet, into another dimension.
Do you think there will ever be a way to like track reincarnated people? So like hear me out, right? To be fair, we live significantly different than like other animals on the planet. It makes me think, what is their purpose? Like what's the purpose of like a raccoon? Have you ever thought about this?
Once a serial killer, always a serial killer.
If you could reincarnate into any species on this particular planet other than human, what would you pick? You had said that you were shown like about 150 past lives at some point. Like how did this occur?
It occurred, it's a great question. That occurred in a myriad of ways. The very first two past lives that I found was in 2011, and it was via doing a formal past life regression with a Michael Newton hypnotherapist. That's where the first two came up. And that was like opening the dam. And they continue to come through to this day. And Dave, they come in a combination of ways. They come via, and this is true for everyone, this is not specific to me. They can come via dreams. Pay attention to your dreams. If dreams show something that's a different time period, do the cars look old fashioned? Are there no cars? Is it horse and carriage? And just remember that detail the best you can. Write it down right away when you wake up because those dreams go away very quickly. But you can get absolute past life energy information and releases via our dreams, via meditation, via doing a formal past life regression. You can be triggered by seeing something on television, by reading something. You might be have past life impressions shared with you with your permission. It should be with your permission, by a psychic medium, by some type of healer, by a spiritual teacher. It's not a numbers game. It is not about the number of past lives that come up for you or that you recall or that you consciously heal and release. There might be a very small number. There might be only one, but that one can set you free and just get you into a much happier, healthier place in this life now.
So these past lives, were they all human? Do you believe that like when
No,
it
they
comes to
weren't.
reincarnation, it's different species, different, planets maybe?
My belief is we as souls have a free will choice, and whether we want to incarnate onto Earth, onto another planet, into another dimension, is my personal belief and experience, and that of many of my clients. The soul wants to progress, and it's going to choose what experience, what adventure, and where and when, to incarnate. So that's my view on that.
For me, logistically, I just feel like, okay, Earth wasn't always around. It won't always be around. Human beings haven't always existed. So, like, when people talk, reincarnation, it's like it would almost have to be other species, is the way that I see it, at a certain point.
That
Um,
makes perfect sense because there's just a cycle. There's a cycle that's going on.
Having this revelation that, like, there has to be something more to this life, some people might go their whole lives. They never consider, they say, I am this person. I'm, Dave Sledge. I'm a human being. How do you live your life now as a human, knowing that, hey, best case scenario, I'm literally not even human. I'm just temporarily this?
Because I had the near-death experience in 1997, there wasn't so much information about NDEs. They weren't being shared as publicly as they are now with these wonderful different podcasts, documentaries, books. There's just such a plethora of information. International Association for Near-Death Studies, there's groups studying these phenomena, but that wasn't the time period that this happened for me in. So, Dave, I didn't know what the heck to do with it, with these two experiences. I had been alone for both of them. I mean, one I was at home, and then one I was in the hospital, and I happened to be alone at that time period. I didn't choose to share it with any of my hospital personnel. I didn't feel the need. And also, I worked in healthcare, and just a practical, realistic woman, I did not see the need for an unwanted psych eval. And I thought that may very well lead to a psych eval that I don't need, will not find enjoyable, and that may kick off some repercussions. So I'm not going there. So that was my decision to not share it with the any of the hospital personnel. I tried to share it with my husband, but his belief system didn't really allow for it. I mean, my belief system wouldn't have allowed for it if I hadn't directly had these experiences. He had gone through such a hard time. I mean, he thinks his wife may die, he may lose the baby, the unborn baby, and he may be raising an 18-month-old alone. So he was very traumatized and stressed by the process. And when I tried to speak about it to him, he just did not want to talk about it. So I let it be because I realized in many ways it was harder for him. So I just let it be.
Is the way I don't know how your brain works as compared to mine, right? So like for you, did this at all become like a distraction where you spend a lot of time trying to ponder like life outside of this existence and stuff like this. Like, did it distract you at all? Was it frustrating, or were you very confident in like what the answers were given your experience? Like,
I
how did
was
you kind of handle it moving forward?
confident in what had happened. I knew exactly what had happened. It was more real than real. It was clear as day. It was unshakable for me what had happened, and I didn't need anybody to validate it. So
Oh, absolutely. Not
I
like not like to validate your experience, but I mean like I guess what I'm trying to ask is like
I
did
wasn't
this
distracted, but probably why I wasn't was I was a very busy working mother with a toddler and going through a pregnancy. So there just was a lot, there was a lot going on. So that wasn't an issue for me.
sometimes I think, very deeply about this stuff and I say, okay, like we're trying to figure out our purpose as humans. We have this, way to articulate ourselves and we have language and to be fair, we live significantly different than like other animals on the planet. It makes me think, what is their purpose? Like what's the purpose of like a raccoon? Have you ever thought about this?
I think about it mostly with animal companions. Because I believe they have a beautiful purpose. I'm a big lover of cats, of dogs, of a lot of different animals, and I think they are wonderful companions to us. I think, depending on the species, I think dogs, man's best friend, just are to teach us to just love ourselves. I mean, the way your dog looks at you, don't you just want to be the person that the dog thinks you are? Doesn't it inspire you to just be better if you've ever had that experience with a dog? Cats, oh my goodness, just so sensual, so comfortable and confident in their skin and in their body, and they'll just pick the best place in the house and no bones about it. Anything in their way, they'll just knock it right off that table or that counter. And just, they're just they're very different. Cats have servants and dogs have masters. I think is very true. So I think that the species all have something very wonderful and unique to learn from each other. If we just pay some attention and ask the questions like you are, those big questions of life. Why are we here? Why are we here together? How can I help others? What am I meant to be doing?
Yeah, and I think across different people, I think the answer would be different as well. So it's not like a one size fits all.
Certainly.
Speaking of the cats, you bring up the cats. I almost died because of a cat, so I got a little bit of like a bone to pick with them. But
Oh my
I
goodness.
think they're cool. I like them. I can't mess with them. Um, actually, that makes me think of a random question. Here's a random like fun question, right? If you could reincarnate into any species on this particular planet other than human, what would you pick?
Oh, I'm going mermaid.
Mermaid? You were a mermaid in a past life, correct?
I have been multiple times. Just those bodies are amazing, just so strong. And just the freedom of movement in the water, versus how we have to move around as human beings. It's a lot less elegant. So I'm going mermaid.
You said you were a mermaid in a past life. Was this on planet Earth or like a different
Done
planet?
both. I've done it on Earth as well as on other planets because my belief is that there's beautiful water planets where there's primarily more people because it's a water planet.
One of your past lives that you had mentioned was that you were like, I don't know if it was the boyfriend or husband of Marilyn Monroe. Like, what was that situation? How do you know that you were that person?
Mhm.
And these were interlinking at the same time, correct? Like, so you're saying that we could live multiple lives at the same
Yes.
time?
Yes. So the concept is, as I mentioned, our higher self, our soul, has an incredible amount of energy. And my belief is we can choose, we can make a soul decision that we're going to incarnate into multiple uh, physical human forms at the same time, or whatever different forms at the same time, because we've got plenty of energy to do that. And we learn more quickly if we've got more horses in the game. We're learning and doing different things. What happened with Marilyn Monroe's second husband, Joe DiMaggio, the way that came up, it was about 8 or 10 years ago now, and I just had been sensing both Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe around me all the time. It's like they were in my dreams and I couldn't figure out really why. They would come up in meditation. I'd be fully conscious and I just was really sensing them. So, what brought it to a head was I was working with an amazing spiritual teacher, my first spiritual teacher, and she texted me one day and said, Joe wants to speak with you. Are you ready? And I was like, oh boy, I don't know that I'm ready, but I know that it's time. It's just time to deal with this and understand what's been going on. So I went to the bedroom, just laid down the phone in the kitchen where the text would come in, and went to the bedroom and laid down and grounded and cleared my energy like I do before any meditation or spiritual practice, and just asked Joe what he wanted to tell me. What he shared with me, Dave, it was really hard to take in, but I knew it was true. And what he said was I had been him in a past life. And it was actually a past parallel life, meaning we were both alive at the same time for about 40 years. He explained what I just said about the higher self and, having, we can choose this as a strategy and why we would do so in order to progress. I was like, oh boy, that's a big deal. I didn't want to deal with it because I thought, Joe DiMaggio, he's really well known. I am not comfortable having such a famous past life. And what am I supposed to do with this? Is this just information for me? Why is this coming up? Or am I meant to share this publicly? And he answered the question when I was meditating, and he said publicly, you need to step to the plate. You need to figure it out. And you're going to be given all the support you need.
Do you think there will ever be a way to like track reincarnated people? So like hear me out, right? Whether it's from like an iris pattern or something like this, do you think there will ever be like a way to track like this new person is that old person that died like 20 years ago? Do you think that's possible?
I think that information's already there at a soul level. I believe it's already there in our book of life. But the question is, would that be in service to you? Is that useful? Is that helpful? I mean, it's like the question of technology. What is the purpose of it? How is it useful? What is the point of that? It's like things can be over engineered. So I believe it's already possible. Do I think it's possible, through an iris scan, through whatever, and that then show our history? Anything is possible. What's the purpose?
Okay, so that's a fair point. So you think maybe perhaps it could be possible, but you don't know if it would necessarily be beneficial or like you struggle
Exactly.
to see the purpose of it?
Exactly, because we come into each lifetime on Earth with a veil of amnesia. Most of us do. And there's reasons for that, like why we don't forget things, or why we don't remember everything. First of all, be overwhelming, way TMI, too much information, and be so distracting, and we wouldn't be willing to try things that are new that we may have tried 400 times before. You wouldn't have that like excitement and innocence and enthusiasm around it that you do now, because you can't remember all the failures or the times it didn't work out. So you're willing to try it again. And this time you do something so slightly different, or times have changed, and it works beautifully, and it would have that wouldn't have happened if
That's
you
a
did.
fair point, like, to where maybe it would influence that life as well, like, if you built a billion-dollar business in a past life, perhaps you and then you, like, find out that's who you were, it would kind
Mhm.
of, like, influence, like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna have to be a businessman in this life," versus, you would have gone on your own path, or even, like, let's say, I hate to give, like, such a crazy example, but, like, a serial killer, if you this guy was a serial killer in his past life, so now he's not even coming in with a clean slate because the whole rest of the world's gonna judge him for who he was 45, like, literally in a past life.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah,
And
that has me thinking, that's interesting.
the past does not determine our present or our future. We have free will, and we are sovereign beings. So, we're here to, my belief is we're here to do the best we can, and to just feel that heaven on earth energy is what I choose to feel. The peace, the love, the joy, the gratitude, and do my best to be there and balanced. Yes, am I human? Yes, do I get grumpy, hangry, disillusioned, exhausted? Absolutely. Those are part of the package deal with being a human. We need things called sleep and shelter and food and clothing. Oh my gosh, it's just so much maintenance, you know, to this human body, versus when you're a soul and you don't need all those things. But those limits in ways are very good for us, because we learn to be resourceful, and we learn to set priorities, and we learn to persevere. We're learning all these amazing qualities. And that's what our soul wants for progressing. We're learning how to forgive. We're learning optimism. Or I mean, these are the things we can choose to work on and to progress with.
Interesting, interesting. Okay.
I don't
So,
believe once a serial killer, always a serial killer. I don't believe once a king, always a king. I believe the soul craves varied experiences, to progress and to enjoy the game.
this is why I love asking these questions, it's interesting to get a different perspective, and it's like, on one hand, you're like, in the short term, "Oh, that'd be so cool to, like, track lives," or so again, it just came, like, off the
Sure,
top of my head,
sure, and
but you bring up a good
absolutely.
point.
I can see people doing that, and probably there's going to be, an alternate reality where that will happen. Like the sci-fi movie becomes real, and I can see there being some the gains to it. Let's talk the other side of the equation. Let's say someone wants to become a physician, some type of healer. They're really called to do that, and it's so important to them. Well, you bet your bottom dollar we are drawing on those past life abilities where we have done that before. We're just pulling that forward. But what if you could do so more consciously? What if we had done things to help the environment? What if we had the answer to global warming, and it was already there, and just those sorts of things to benefit humanity and everything else on the planet?
If you could ask one question to the person watching this video right now, what would it be?
My question would be, what would make you happy, and how can you get there? We're
Okay.
really hard on ourselves as human beings a lot of times, and I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors. So it gets back to that point of just that self-love, and how I just so needed to get that hug, and that love when I went home. It just was really, really a big deal, and just changed everything for me.